Hi, everybody. Hello, good morning. Hello. What do you think? Good morning, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our morning meeting with ambassadors. We're here today with the beautiful Gaia, and we are inside just because it's a little bit cruddy out. So we are doing our morning meeting from inside our office today. Gaia is our beautiful great horned owl ambassador, and she's going to be joining us. We'll chat a little bit about her. She is the largest owl that we have here at the Center for Wildlife. That's a part of our ambassador team. So you know, she's definitely a fierce lady. But come on in, get settled, and I'll give you guys a shout out if you let me know where you're from. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's see who comes and joins us. Hello, everybody. Hello. Gaia is our female great horned owl. We do have a male as well. And these guys typically are very large birds. They're quite big. They're the largest year-round owl resident that we have in Maine. And, you know, they're only surpassed by the snowy owls. So they are quite big. Gaia, come here. Hi. And Gaia probably weighs somewhere around like 5 or 6 pounds. She's not incredibly heavy, but she is pretty bulky, and she does have quite a bit of muscle on her. So I'll show you guys a better view of Gaia. So those are her talons that you guys can see. Good morning, Paul. Hello. So she has these very large talons that in the wild they will use to hunt for their prey, that they will use to come down and land on their prey and immobilize them. So they have these really strong talons to help them to do that, and their grip strength is just incredible. It's among the highest in the raptor family. So really strong birds. These guys are obviously in the owl family, so they're nocturnal, and they're more often than not hunting for nocturnal animals. So they will be hunting for animals that that might be wandering through a field, or you know, crossing underneath the tree that they're living in, and those will typically include things like opossums, skunks. They do actually love to eat skunk because it's fairly easy for them to see. They're not so fast, and birds, for the most part, don't really mind strong smells as much as people do. They don't have a very well-developed sense of smell. So skunk is a favorite for these guys. Gaia came to us when she was a pretty young little baby. She was probably around like 3 months of age when she was found at the base of her nest, at the base of the tree that her nest was in, by the folks that own the property. And she had been observed with her family in the nest for quite some time, so they knew that she was there. Good morning, Nevitz. Hello. Or Stephen. Hello. So they knew she was there, and knew that there was this family of great horned owls, and had enjoyed observing her. And because she was, you know, found at the base of the tree, they knew something was wrong. Usually these guys will fly off with their parents. They'll go off to a hunting ground at the end of the summer that's really well stocked, so that they can learn how to hunt and how to catch their prey. They spend a long time with their parents learning how to do that. They have to be really efficient hunters. And so the rest of the family flew off, and Gaia tried to fly off, but instead of being able to fly with her family, she fell to the base of the tree that she was in. And this was due to a pretty significant injury that had happened in the nest to her. Are you hot? I know it's warm in here. I know. A pretty significant injury that had happened in the nest to her her elbow. So you guys can see that Gaia has this wing over here that sticks out a little funny, and that is because her elbow joint is actually kind of frozen in this position. She's not able to lift it up and tuck it in the way that she can with this wing over here. So she does have that permanent injury that prevents her from being able to fly, and she can't really get up off the ground. So she will live with us at the center for the rest of her life. Good morning. Hello, Chuck. And she is somewhere around 10 years old at this point. Maybe a little bit more like 8, but she could live well into her 40s with us in captivity here. In the wild, they can usually live to about 30, and then beyond that in captivity. So we're really lucky. We'll have Gaia with us for a long, long time. Are you warm? Yeah, I know it's warm. I have a fan going to try to cool her down. You're okay. You're okay. I know. So Gaia here came to us when she was found with this injury, and most likely it happened in the nest. She most likely was just jostled around and was unable to kind of get the proper medical care that she needed because she was in the nest. But that joint kind of solidified into this kind of hard ball of bone called a callus, and she now can no longer really move this joint. Good morning, Jason. Chuck, we're just inside because it's pretty cruddy out today. It's raining and very, very windy, so Gaia probably would not prefer that, although it is pretty warm in here. Yeah. You're okay. Good morning, Jason. Hello. So Gaia here lives with her mate Galileo, and the two of them actually just became empty nesters. Their babies that they had been fostering all summer have gone into their own enclosure, and one of them was actually released the other day. The female, I believe, or the male was released the other day, and then we have a female as well who's still with us and will be released hopefully this week. So we're really, really excited. Both of the babies that Guy and Galileo helped to raise did really, really well. They both, I know, honey. You're okay. She gets very warm when we're inside because she's used to being outside where it's pretty chilly. I know. So she came. She and Galileo did a great job of raising those babies. They were in their own enclosure for a little bit, and they were able to really help us to get those babies up and into the wild. If we hadn't had Galileo and Gaia, it would have been really challenging for us to care for them for an extended period of time. They really need to learn a lot from their parents. So owls that are raised in captivity need to learn not only to seek out and look for other great horned owls, they also need to learn how to hunt. They need to learn how to, talk to other owls, how to interact with other owls. And that can be really challenging for a human to teach that to a little baby, but it's easy for these guys. So having them as foster parents is just such a great resource. We're really, really lucky that they were able to do that for us. So now they're empty nesters, and they are a little bit more fierce than they were before. You guys can probably see Gaia is turning her head really, really far around, looking at everything that's going on in here. She's, checking out her surroundings. She's keeping an eye on all the different noises that she's hearing. She can turn her head about 270 degrees around, so almost 3/4 of a full circle. And she's able to do that because she has incredibly flexible joints in her neck. So the joint that attaches her spine to the back of her head is very, very flexible and able to rotate almost completely 3/4 around. I'm just going to close this door because it's getting a little, loud out there. Yeah, we're keeping it open to keep it a little bit cooler in here for Miss Gaia, but sometimes things are more distracting. I know. And this ability to turn their heads around so much is down to their need to see what's going on around them. So you can see Gaia checking out everything in the vicinity. And she is able to do that because of that excellent rotation. But the reason that she has to do that is because she can't really move her eyes the way that we can. So she is not able to see out of the corner of her eye the way that we can. She needs to turn her head in order to see, just like when we're wearing a pair of binoculars. She needs to have those have those I know have those eyes be able to see what's going on around her, and she is unable to do that with just the eyes that she has. They have these big set eyes. They're really, really large, and they're set in their skull, so they are not able to move them the way that we can. And we can absolutely talk about her talons. I'm happy to. Hi. Let me just move this fan for her really quickly. Hopefully that'll help cool her down a little bit. What do you think? You got a fan? Her feet and her talons are one of the best and most amazing adaptations that our raptors have. So they're able to grab and hold on to their prey with talons. Talons are what we call the specially adapted feet of our raptor birds. So birds of prey that eat meat have talons. The word raptor really just means to grab or to grasp. So those talons are actually one of the most important key features of a raptor. It's really what makes them unique. And they have, all sorts of different configurations of feet, but owls are able to actually change up the way that their feet are oriented to suit what they're eating, which is really cool. So you can see Gaia's talons here. She has this little pinky toe over here, and owls are actually able to kind of bring that to the front if they need that, and then they're able to rotate it back the way that you see now. So they can actually change where that pinky toe is located. Okay, I'll put you back down. I know. I'm going to try to keep her in one spot in front of the fan because it's warm. Yeah, so their talons are really, really incredible. They are a overwintering bird, so they do stay here all winter long. They are very, very, good at finding food during the winter, and a part of how they do that is by taking those talons and punching through the snowpack. So they're able to just punch through the snow and grab at little mice running around underneath. So if there's a mouse or a mole, they'll be able to punch through the snow. These guys are also going to be eating things that are quite a bit larger than that as well, so they might go after something that's on top of the snow, but they are still able to get to things underneath the snow as well. And their talons have almost a 300 pound per square inch grip strength. So that's just very, like 300 psi is just very strong for a grip strength. If we gripped our hands as tightly as we could, we would have maybe like a tenth of that. So very, very strong. The only ones in our area that really surpass that are the snowy owls, which makes sense because they're always hunting where there's snowpack. So they need a little bit more. They can have about like 350 psi's worth of crushing power with those talons. So just incredible. And obviously these guys are boreal, so they live up in trees, and their talons are also really important for their ability to perch. So raptors are in the passerine bird family, which just means the perching bird family. And that is different from like water birds who are meant to live in the water, ground birds who are meant to live on the ground. So they're in this perching bird family. So their talons adapted from other perching birds' feet, but then they developed all of that strength. They evolved that strength to help them to catch their prey. So other perching birds, like our ravens or our crows or our songbirds, have a similar shaped foot, but they don't have that strength that makes them really, really able to catch and hold on to their food. So that's the biggest thing that makes a raptor's talons really important. And what's interesting about that is we always lump in our turkey vultures into the raptor family because they are more closely related to our raptors here in America than any other group of birds. So they are in that family, but they do not have talons. They have those turkey feet. That's how they get their name. So there are lots of debates going on in the scientific community about where to put turkey vultures, if they go into their own group, if they can be included with the raptors. Some scientists argue that they really can't because they don't have those talons. And the reason that they are in the raptor family, even though they're kind of an oddball, is because they're more genetically linked, more closely related to other big birds of prey than other types of birds. So they just kind of get taken along for the ride, but they're not a true raptor. And then in Europe, they're in a completely different family. They're more closely related to the turkey vultures, or the vultures that exist in Europe and in Africa are actually in a totally different family. They're in the like stork family because they're more closely related to them. So it's just an odd thing about New World birds versus Old World birds, and about genetics. And a lot of this hasn't been discovered until the last 20 years or so, when we started doing genetics research on all of these species. So it's really, really interesting, and it's always changing. That's the biggest thing about zoology and about the genetic relationships between all of these birds, is that it's always changing. Just a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, they completely changed the Latin name for the snowy owl. They put it in a whole new genus. So they included it in the same family as the same genus as our great horned owls and our big big like great horned owls and Eurasian eagle owls. They're all in that same bubo family now, whereas maybe 10 years ago they weren't. So it's always changing. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I could talk about taxonomy for ages, but let me know if you have any questions. Gaia's doing a really good job of showing off her feather tufts. This is where they get their name. So these great horned owls are called that because of these feathers that they have on the top of their head that look like horns. And they are actually called plumicorns, which I learned recently and I think is a great word. Plumicorns, which makes sense if you think about the roots of those words. They're feathered horns, right? And they are a big part of the ability of our owls to blend into their surroundings and to camouflage themselves. So a lot of owls will have these plumicorns or horns. Sometimes you'll hear them called tufts. Sometimes you'll hear them called ears. But they are just feathers, and they are a really important part of their camouflage. So they will sit in a tree and stick up those feathers and kind of blend right in with the vertical line of a tree trunk. And they, of course, our great horned owls are sometimes known as the tigers of the night because they have these beautiful striped patterns along their wings. They really do blend in quite fantastically with our tree bark. And I can show you guys a little bit closer up just how beautiful her camouflage is. So all of that is really, really good at blending in with our tree bark. It looks almost just like tree bark. And it's surprising because you wouldn't think that, such a large bird would spend so much time worrying about blending in. Like, they don't need to worry so much about predation, but they do need to worry about sneaking up on their prey. So they don't want to necessarily scare their prey off if they're hunting. So they do want to blend in for that reason. They also want to blend in to protect their young, to protect their nest. They want to make sure that they're not, sticking out like a sore thumb to predators that might want to eat their babies. These guys are at the top of the food chain, though, up in the trees. Really, the only other animals that might go after a full-grown great horned owl are humans. Humans used to hunt these guys pretty relentlessly. About 100 years ago, our great horned owls were very, very rare in our area because they were hunted by farmers. They were seen as predators of livestock, and just like the coyote and the wolf and the mountain lion, they were really persecuted for that reason. So they've only really expanded and become more common in the last 100 years or so. So humans are really the only predator that is known to go after a full-grown great horned owl. There are all sorts of predators that will go after their nests, um, you know, and especially things that are boreal, like fisher cats can raid nests, but they're also just incredibly fiercely protective of their babies. And these guys, especially the females, can get really, really strong, really muscular, and do a great job of protecting their nest. So it's really, you would be hard pressed to be a predator to, you know, snatch up one of their babies. They're very, very protective. Is she larger than barred owls? Yeah. So Chuck, she's probably about twice as heavy as our barred owls, and maybe in size, she's probably like, I don't know, 1.5 times the size of our barred owls, but she's much, much bulkier. The female great horned owl carries a lot more weight on them. They carry a lot more muscle mass, obviously to defend their nest. Galileo is probably, he's, you know, he's significantly lighter and smaller than Gaia, so he's maybe only about 1.5 times the size or the weight of Gaia here. But Galileo, just like in our other raptor species, Galileo is the smaller member of the species because he is the male. He's off hunting. He tries to conserve as much energy as possible by remaining light. And he is not the primary protector of the nest, so he doesn't need to have a bunch of muscle mass, and he doesn't need to be big and scary, but that's the job of the female. So female great horned owls tend to carry a lot of muscle. They can, you know, beat up anybody that comes to raid their nest. So they're very, very powerful and strong. And when these guys had their babies in their enclosure, they actually did act like that quite a bit. So Gaia would puff up all big and tough. She'd fluff up her feathers and kind of arch her wings and kind of spread them out in front of her babies, and clack her beak a bunch. That's something that owls do to ward off predators, is they'll snap their beak. So she was very, very tough about protecting those babies, and she did not enjoy it when we went in there. So we tried to give her as much space as possible, but it's amazing how quickly that instinct comes over. Stephen, their wingspan is probably about like 4.5, 5 feet. Owls are not known for having like super long wingspans. They will have like wider wings that help them to soar over these large areas, but they're not like super long. So I would say like 4.5, 5 feet is normal. And then Gaia can't really extend one of her wings, so her wingspan is not indicative of other owls. But what's interesting about owls is they'll have a interesting ratio between their wings and their tail depending on where they're hunting. So if they're hunting in a densely forested area, they're going to have a longer tail and shorter wings to help them maneuver and cut through the air. And then if they're like Gaia and they're soaring out over a field, they're going to have these big, wide, long wings and a shorter tail to help them to soar and glide and use as little energy as possible flapping. So it's interesting, and they're all adapted to live in different areas and hunt in different areas. So if you guys have seen Leo, our long-eared owl, before, you'll remember he has those long, impressive wings and that short little tail. That's because they like to soar a lot. So thank you guys so much for asking such great questions. Kara, oh, I'm sorry, I missed your question. She's about the same height as Bertram. But Bertram's significantly lighter than she is. She's much, much heavier. So, yeah. Oh, it's okay. So Bertram, it's windy out there. Bertram might be the same like height as she is, although she's not necessarily like standing full up right now. She does tend to lean forward a little bit because of her injury. So Bertram is probably about as big as she is, but much lighter than she is. And yeah, I can definitely talk about her ears. She won't let me show them like some of the bards will. She's a little too feisty for that. But our great horned owls do have these incredibly large ears. All of our owls have very, very good hearing. They use their hearing to help them to hunt, so to help locate prey. And their ears are located right behind that black line that makes that kind of a curved semicircle shape. behind her eye. Her ear is located like right there, right behind that eye. And the purpose of this semicircle of feathers is actually to act kind of like a little cup or a satellite dish. So sound will bounce off of those feathers and get directed right into their ears. So they can hear very, very well. Especially at night, they're known to kind of either soar over a big field kind of scanning for prey, or they'll also sit and wait for prey to run underneath a tree, and then they'll pounce on them. And that is a very effective way for them to hunt for food, because they can stay up in the tree, they can be very quiet, they can listen, and then they can pinpoint exactly where their prey is on the ground using their hearing. And what's interesting about our owls is they actually have this really cool ability to triangulate sound really easily. So when we hear a noise and it's coming from the other room, or it's coming from, we can tell a general direction of where sound is coming from, but sometimes we get tricked. And that's because our ears are at the same level. And so we have a hard time discerning whether noises are coming from above us or below us. We can kind of tell direction pretty well, but we've all been tricked into thinking that a noise is coming from somewhere that it's not before. This is how like ventriloquists can throw their voices, things like that. These guys have these ears that are actually offset from each other. So one is up here near the tip of our ear, and one is down by our earlobe. So it's slanted like this. And what that does is allow them to figure out, okay, I heard something coming from up here. I know it's up here, and I turn my head up to look at it, or I fly off in the opposite direction to get away from it if it's a predator. And then if I hear something coming from underneath below me, I can pinpoint where exactly that sound came from and hop on it if it's a prey animal. So they can triangulate where sound is coming from really quickly. They can, pounce right on their food. And they've done really amazing experiments with owls where they'll put them in a completely blackened room, so there's no source of visible light whatsoever. And they'll put an obstacle course in there, release a little mouse, and that owl is able to catch that mouse no problem, almost 100% of the time, just using its hearing. So they've hypothesized, well, maybe they're seeing, the urine trails of the mouse that glow infrared or something like that. But really, it's down to their incredible hearing that they have. Everybody loves to focus on owl eyes, but their hearing is really, really excellent. How do you go in to get her foster babies? Do they try to attack you? Kara, they usually don't try to attack. They will posture, is what we call it, when they stick their wings out and get all fluffy and clack their beak. They'll posture, and they'll even sometimes try to nip if we come close with a glove or a net or something. But Gaia and Galileo both kind of are used to human presence, so they will fly off to the other direction of the enclosure once we get kind of close enough. And the babies are also fully flighted. So when we went in there to get them, they're flying around like crazy. They don't want to have anything to do with us. And Gaia and Galileo, who are a little bit more used to us, are more stationary. So we take a big giant net. So we call it our people catching net because it's so huge and long. And we use that to kind of net the babies and get them into a box. And then we had them in their own enclosure for the last 3 weeks or so. And they were able to kind of practice their flying. And Galileo Galileo and Gaia have been kind of getting used to not having them anymore. So when we wanted to catch them, to weigh them, to do medical checks on them, to get them out of there eventually, we used a giant net, and they were flying all over the place because they were really uncomfortable having people in there, which is what we want. We want them not to like people at all. But Galileo and Gaia are a little bit more stationary, stayed put, and didn't, necessarily fall for the big net. So Anne asks, since they are nocturnal, what is the relationship do they have with bats? So Anne, that's actually a really great question. Other smaller species of owls are definitely predators of bats. So like barred owls will eat bats. They're one of the primary predators of bats, but bats are incredibly fast and incredibly, acrobatic in their flight. And owls typically are pretty lazy when it comes to their hunting strategies. So they're going to go for those things on the ground that they can see or hear really well. And bats, they can hear them pretty well because bats use echolocation. They make a lot of noise. So if they can catch a bat, they'll absolutely go for it. But they are not usually a preferred source of food, just because they're so fast, they're so acrobatic, and owls really typically tend to not be as active of a hunter. And for a great horned owl especially, I would say a bat would be too small to really justify how much energy it would take to catch them. So these guys are going to definitely be looking for something a little bit more sizable, like a skunk or an opossum, something that they can really get a few nights worth of food out of. And then, yeah, I would say they could always catch a bat if they wanted to put the energy in. Sometimes you'll see like younger birds going after those sorts of prey items, but usually it's just a little too small and a little too much trouble for them. But definitely a smaller species of owl, like a barred owl, would go for a bat. The owlets are actually in the process of being released right now. I believe on our Facebook page last week we had a video of Kristen releasing one of them. And then we'll be releasing the other one this week. And yeah, it's really, really cool. They're getting out there, and October is really that month where they would be kind of separating from their parents, going off and finding their own territory. So this is the perfect time of year to release them. They've learned how to hunt. They've done as much learning from Galileo and Gaia as we can really expect them to get. And now we want to give them plenty of time until it starts to get really cold to establish, where they're going to spend the winter, to practice their hunting skills. And luckily they're both pretty local birds, so if anyone reports anything happening with them, if they're having a hard time, then we hopefully will be able to find them again and pick them up. But usually they are pretty successful when we're able to release them like that. These guys do a really good job of raising their babies. Nice job, Gaia. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other questions, I'm always happy to answer them, but let me know. And otherwise, we're going to go put Gaia back outside because she is hot. It's so funny that a normal office temperature, it's not even probably 70 in here, is too warm for Gaia because she's used to living outside, and she has a very dense coat of feathers on her. So she is warm. We're going to get you back outside. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back again tomorrow, tomorrow with Kristen Brewster and another one of our beautiful ambassadors. Oh, Charlie in Freeport would like to know if she can jump. She can jump. That's actually how she gets around mostly, because she can't really fly anymore. So she has ramps and perches in her enclosure that she'll jump from to get around, and then she'll kind of if she does go to the ground, she has to use a ramp to get back up. So she can jump and she can walk, but she's not able to fly. That's a really good question, Charlie. Thank you. Alrighty, thank you guys so much. Have a really good rest of your day. And as always, we appreciate you watching and engaging with us. We miss you guys so much. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you all later.